Welcome to Registrar Corp's mini MoCRA webinar today, where we will be discussing FDA's draft guidance update for facility registration and product listings. Our mini MoCRA sessions are designed to give you quick details and information about specific topics that are needed for compliance under MoCRA and include any necessary developments that occur. At Registrar Corp, we proudly offer importers, exporters, and regulatory professionals a comprehensive array of services and software that help companies achieve and maintain FDA regulatory compliance. We understand how daunting FDA compliance can be. Our team of qualified experts provide the support you need to help you keep your supply chain compliant and to protect consumers, your brand, and reduce the risk of costly disruptions to your business. I am Jacqueline Belomo, the Director of Cosmetic Services and Software at Registrar Corp. I support the team on regulatory guidance and requirements for cosmetics, as well as providing support on our Cosmetry, Product Manager, and GMP software. I want to thank all our participants joining us today. We look forward to providing you with important information necessary to understand MoCRA and its requirements. Here's our agenda for today's mini session. We'll first be covering the draft guidance and updates that were issued by FDA earlier this month. Next, we'll be going into the submission process and who is responsible and how to prepare as a facility and as a responsible person in the next month. Lastly, we will answer any questions. So if you have some along the way, please drop them in our Q&A box and we will answer them at the end. So some of you that have joined us before know that MoCRA has some key definitions that have requirements specific to facility registration and product listings. As mentioned in the draft guidance, FDA added 3 clarifying definitions that will help determine responsibilities specific to facility registration. Under the draft guidance, FDA defined operator and owner as it relates to a cosmetic facility. The term operator means a person who has management authority over an establishment, and the term owner means a person who has ownership interest in the establishment. The term contract manufacturer means a facility that engages in one or more steps in manufacturing or processing a cosmetic product on behalf of another company. And lastly, before the draft, we were unsure how manufacturing and processing a cosmetic product would be defined under MoCRA, and the draft guidance clarifies this term. The term manufacturing or processing of a cosmetic product means engaging in one or more steps in the making of any cosmetic product by chemical, physical, biological, or other procedures, including manipulation, sampling, testing, or controlled procedures applied to the product. We will now review some key MoCRA draft guidance updates that FDA issued. So let's start with facility registration. So the FD&C Act requires every person that owns or operates a facility that engages in the manufacturing or processing of a cosmetic product for distribution in the United States needs to register their facility. As provided under Section 607A3 of the FD&C Act, if a facility manufactures or processes cosmetic products on behalf of the responsible person, for example, a contract manufacturer, only a single registration is required for such facility, even if the facility is manufacturing or processing its own cosmetic products or cosmetic products on behalf of more than one responsible person. A responsible person whose products are manufactured or processed at such facility may submit the facility registration for such facility. Under this approach, the owner operator of the contract manufacturing facility would not register such facility if the responsible person submitted that facility registration. So very important, and we'll get into a little details about how that might work and what that looks like, especially for small business exemptions later on in our presentation. Again, a facility can be exempt from registration as a small business. And then facilities that manufacture or process cosmetics and manufacture and process cosmetics that are also drugs must register with FDA as both a cosmetic facility and a drug establishment. So very important. A really good example I love using is a foundation with SPF as a drug that's also a cosmetic, and a foundation with no SPF is a cosmetic. If they are made in the same facility, that facility would need to hold a cosmetic registration and a drug establishment registration. MoCRA clearly defines the term facility, does not include any of the following establishments. So, beauty shops or salons, cosmetic product retailers, direct sellers, retail distribution facilities, pharmacies, hospitals, healthcare clinics, public health agencies, entities that provide complementary cosmetics, such as hotels, trade shows, and other venues that provide product samples, establishments that manufacture cosmetics solely for the use of research and evaluation, and then establishments that solely perform one or more of the following with respect to a cosmetic product. So labeling, relabeling, packaging, repackaging, holding, or distributing. Note that as used above, the term packaging and repackaging do not include filling a product container with a cosmetic product. This means that a facility that fills a product container with a cosmetic product would not qualify for this particular exemption. They are technically processing a cosmetic and would need to register their facility. So the draft guidance provides some key updates to facility registration. For one, facilities must obtain a registration number before starting the registration submission. So this was very new news to everyone, as MoCRA's original statement says that every facility would have a registration number. With this draft guidance update, it now is requiring it beforehand. So a facility would need to obtain their FDA establishment identifier, their FEI number, before registration can begin. Very important to note that if a facility doesn't have that FEI number, uh, to get one, Registrar Court can help in issuing FEI numbers. We do expect with this new update that a lot of facilities who don't have FEI numbers will be requesting them from FDA. So there could be a flood of a lot of people coming in and asking for this number. So very important to start this process now. FDA also requested additional optional information to be submitted. So parent company name, facility DUNS number, and any additional contact information that would be needed for the facility registration. Many have been asking if the timing for facility registration still remains the same, as we are nearing the end of August and the portal is still not open. So FDA has confirmed that the date remains the same. So existing facilities will still have to register by December 29th, 2023. New facilities must register within 60 days of first manufacturing, but no sooner than December 29th, 2023. Facilities must re-register every 2 years, but important to note that any updates to the facility registration information will require an update, and the update has to happen within 60 days of any change. So very important. FDA has also stated that they'll be offering an abbreviated registration renewal process. They have not released what that process looks like right now, but more importantly, to gather all of the information needed for registration, and again, some of that optional information that might be needed later on. And lastly, all foreign facilities will be required to have a U.S. agent contact. So that U.S. agent contact is an entity or an authorized agent that resides in the United States that is able to handle communication on behalf of a foreign facility. Really important for open communication and emergencies. Foreign facilities, it's important that you establish your U.S. agent contact now, as that is a requirement for facility registration submissions. You will need that to submit your facility registration with FDA. So very important. If you have not done that, Registrar Corp does offer those services, so please feel free to reach out on next steps for foreign facilities and U.S. agent services. Product listings, just to review quickly, the responsible person must submit cosmetic product listings for each product to FDA. As mentioned, FDA will be allowing for flexible listings that may ease some of this burden. Flexible listings allow for a single submission for multiple products that have identical formulations or differ only in color, flavor, taste, or net quantity of contents. If your firm has a significant amount of products, it's very important to determine in advance what products might be qualified for this process. Right now, this can be very daunting to brands and for companies that have thousands of products. Determining flexible listings will be helpful in understanding too what and how many product listings that you have. It's also important to understand where you manufacture or process all these identical formulations, whether you're dual sourcing or having the same formula made at one factory for one size and another at a different factory. All locations must be listed on that product listing. So very important to figure out now or work with an authorized agent on figuring out how to determine these flexible listings, how to determine the locations, and helping to organize this data will become crucial in the coming weeks. And then lastly, products that are drugs and also cosmetics are exempt from the cosmetic listing requirement, but please note that products that are drugs still must follow the requirements of Chapter 5 of the FD&C Act. So again, anti-dandruff shampoos, foundations with SPF, acne creams, they will all be required to still list under that drug establishment and drug listing requirements that are already in place. So very important to know that if you do have a facility, it's very different. If your facility does drug cosmetics and cosmetics, you would need both drug registration and a cosmetic registration. But a drug cosmetic would only need a drug listing, and a cosmetic would only need a cosmetic listing. Some product listing updates. So the responsible person will need to obtain the relevant facility registration number or numbers for each facility where its cosmetic products are manufactured and processed. So very important, especially working with contract manufacturers to obtain all those facility registration numbers. If you are a responsible person using a contract manufacturer, understanding too if they are going to register themselves, if they already have an FEI number, all of this is going to come very relevant for the responsible person who has to submit that product listing, and in what part of the process that their facilities are in right now. If the facility is a small business that is exempt from registration, and we'll get into the logistics of the small business a little bit later, and has no facility registration number, then the facility name and address can be provided in its place. So very important that if you work with a small business contract manufacturer, they are exempt, that the facility name and address can be put on there. And then lastly, FDA issued in the appendix a list of cosmetic product categories and codes. So this is the updated list. For those of you who have worked through VCRP before, have an understanding of the product categories and the codes, this might be somewhat familiar with the updates, but very important to note there are updates in terms of children's makeup, children's eye makeup, and important to get that sorted out right now, because the category is required on both the product listing side and the facility registration side. So very important when giving in those submissions. Similar to facility registration, FDA also requested additional optional information to be submitted by the responsible person with the product listing. So parent company name, the type of business, image on the label, product web link, whether the cosmetic product is for professional use, responsible person's DUNS number for address listed on the product label, unique ingredient identifiers, and any additional contact information for individuals associated with the listing. So very important. As you can see, the product listing has a lot more optional information that closely follows a lot of what is already being requested on the drug cosmetic side, for a few reasons that we will learn about shortly of how similar this request is for the optional information to cosmetics that are already submitted as drugs. Like facility registration, product listing timing has not changed. All product listings that were marketed prior to December 9th, 2022 must be submitted by December 29th, 2023. Products marketed after has 120 days of first marketing the product. Responsible persons must provide updates to product listings on an annual basis, and product listings require an annual renewal. So very important to note the difference between facility registration and product listings. Product listings can be a lot, and the fact that they will be having to be renewed annually is very important to know for your internal structures and your internal processes as well. The responsible person may submit product listing information as part of the facility registration or separately. And again, there will be abbreviated renewal process. Again, until we see the portal, we're not sure what that might look like. FDA will take into account small businesses and provide some flexibility for simplified requirements or exemptions. FDA defines a small business as those with an average gross annual sales in the US for the previous 3-year period totaling less than $1 million. Small businesses that are exempt from certain regulations, so they're not subject to requirements of Section 606 or 607, so GMP or registration and listing, and they will only be required to maintain adverse event records for 3 years. These exemptions are intended to help make sure that small businesses are able to grow in the United States and then have the ability to grow. As mentioned, the small business does apply to the average annual gross sales of a company, but under Section 612B of the FD&C Act, regardless of their average gross annual sales, businesses that engage in manufacturing or processing the following cosmetics are not exempt from registration and listing requirements. So very important to note the product category that your cosmetics fall under if you are a small business. So cosmetic products that regularly come into contact with the mucous membrane of the eye under conditions of use that are customary or usual. So your mascaras, your eyeliners, your eyelash primers, all of those come in contact with the mucous membrane of the eye. Cosmetic products that are injected, tattoo inks, there's a whole category. Cosmetic products that are intended for internal use, feminine products are also listed, and then cosmetic products that are intended to alter the appearance for more than 24 hours under conditions of use that are customary or usual and removable by the consumer is not part of such conditions. So this will be your nail extenders, anything of that nature that requires that altering of more than 24 hours. So very important to note those product categories and where your products fall within that category so that you can figure out if the exemptions are in your small business realm. We're now going to get into the registration and listing portal. So some fun updates on the portal. So FDA did announce that it will open in October of 2023. The exact date has not been shared yet with the industry. Facility registrations will require that FEI number prior to registration submission. The responsible person will need those FEI numbers to submit the product listings. Registration and listing data will be required to be submitted electronically using the structured product labeling format. FDA did mention in the draft guidance that cosmetic product facility registration and product listing will be available using the same electronic submission process available to register, establish, and list a drug with FDA. So very important if SPL formatting is not something you're familiar with or your company is not familiar with, to make sure that you find an authorized agent to help you through this process. It is complicated if you have not dealt with the SPL formatting before or with any type of drug submissions through the FDA portal. And FDA has a tendency that if things are incorrect to reject or have you redo your submissions. So very important to know the capabilities within your company, what your regulatory group is able to take on when it comes to this type of process. FDA is also developing a paper form as an alternative submission tool, but they're highly encouraging everyone to use the electronic portal. FDA also created a pilot program for companies to test the new portal for registrations and listings. FDA is currently accepting applications for participants to conduct user acceptance testing in a voluntary program of this new electronic submission portal. FDA will only accept 9 participants in the industry, and the program is set to begin on or around September 15th and last approximately 2 weeks. Important to note that none of the information submitted during the pilot will fulfill a participant's registration and listing responsibility under MoCRA, but they will be required to give their feedback, understand how the portal works, if it's the user-friendly acceptance that they're looking for, and how complicated or not complicated does this fall within the cosmetic sector. FDA also issued a further comment on the public disclosure of information that will be submitted for facility registrations and product listings. At the start of the conversation of MoCRA, industry very much pushed to have certain things disclosed from the public. So the product listing number will not be available for public disclosure. FDA will not disclose any information from a facility registration on the brand names under which cosmetic products are manufactured or processed in the facility. Facility registration numbers on product listings will not be disclosed. Important to note that all other information from the cosmetic product facility registration or listing would be available for public disclosure consistent with the IA, and then FDA intends to make relevant information from cosmetic product facility registrations and listings available to the public. So very important to note, there is an FEI portal. It has listings, available. The factory name and address, not street address, could be available. So anything that that the public would need to know, or that is not detrimental to the cosmetic products, to the brand, to the facility, will be disclosed to the public. But they were very conscious in making sure that certain parts are held from the public, because if you do have a product made at a contract manufacturer and it's a top selling product, the last thing you want everyone to know is where that product is getting made on your behalf. So important to know what they are keeping out of the public. How to prepare. So very important preparing for portal launch. If you are an owner and operator of a facility, obtain an FDA establishment identifier now. That FEI number is going to be crucial in that opening date of that portal. Again, we don't have the exact date, but from the pilot program, we can kind of guess that you should be ready by October 2nd. September 15th gives 2 weeks portals, talking back and forth with the participants. So very important to just be ready to go that 2nd of October, that Monday. If you are a facility outside the United States, obtain a U.S. agent now. Again, because there is such a short runway from October to the deadline in December, a lot of agencies, U.S. agencies, will get flooded with this request, because there are a lot of cosmetic facilities that will need to have to register that are outside of the United States. So important to designate that agent now. If you are the responsible person, request those FEI numbers from your facilities, start that conversation, make sure that you understand where your products are getting manufactured, where they're getting filled, any part of that definition that was just explained through the draft guidance. Make sure to have those conversations with your contract manufacturers now, and also make sure to begin the conversation of how they plan on registering and their next steps as well. The responsible person should also begin to name their cosmetic products per that cosmetic product categories and code lists. That is a requirement. So to have that kind of drafted now and filled out would put you far ahead of the game. If you are unfamiliar with SPL submissions, make sure to obtain an authorized third-party service agent to help with these submissions. Again, Registrar Corp. We have been doing this for many years in the drug sector. We have experts in the fields around SPL submissions, so please reach out if you do have any questions or how we can help you handle these product listing submissions. In full transparency, many brands that have thousands of products or thousands of SKUs with kits and sets, organizing that data and understanding how to submit for that SPL submission can be overwhelming, especially in the time frame that we are now given to create those SPL submissions. So some key takeaways. The draft guidance specifies that the dates for registration and product listings are still due December 29th. Portal will open in October. FDA is using the same electronic submission process that's available for drugs. Submission portal will need to be submitted in SPL format. And FDA is accepting comments on the draft guidance until September 7th, 2023. So important, if you have read that draft guidance and you need further clarification or any comments to it, feel free to submit to FDA. Lastly, as always, we've created a timeline for you guys to view and always have on hand of all these important dates for MoCRA. Most importantly, the facility registration, product listing, and professional labeling, as well as serious adverse event reporting, all takes place this year. So very important to note, including safety substantiation as well. So ensuring and maintaining all those supporting documents on safety. So I'm going to open it up to the floor. Again, we can help in several ways from Registrar Corp. We're happy to walk you through some of the next couple of weeks that could be difficult for firms that, have been kind of sitting and waiting. So let's open up the questions. Again, any questions, please feel free to drop in the Q&A box. Let's see here. All right. Would a product that only varies in fragrance fall under the flexible listing and only requires single product listing? So yes. So under the flexible listings, you would need to have an identical formulation that only differs in fragrance, flavor, colorants, or net quantity. So very important that it has to be that identical formulation. And then from there, the only variants that could be different are the fragrance, flavor, and colorants. And then if you have those different sizes as well. So a 2-ounce to an 8-ounce. We had a question in our earlier session this morning that asked, we have 25 shampoos, identical formula, and they each have a different flavor. And we've added a special ingredient to each one to match the flavor. So our mango flavor has a mango extract. Does that classify as flexible listings? And unfortunately, no. Adding that mango flavor or the mango extract to the mango flavor and a watermelon extract to a watermelon flavor, those two would fall under different products. So important to note that, that little change in variance that doesn't fall under those classifications of flexible listings will be included, will not be included in that flexible listing clause. So that's why it's extremely important to have all of your formulations in front of you, work with experts, know people who can read ingredient lists, and work with people who understand not only fragrances but fragrance allergens as well, and that they're able to identify those on ingredient lists and make sure they give you the best possible advice in that terms. A couple other questions here. I am a brand owner who uses the contract manufacturers. What are the requirements for me personally, i.e. the brand, or are the only requirements for the CM? So very important as a brand owner, if your name is on the label of the cosmetic product, meaning you're the manufacturer, packer, or distributor listed on that label, you are technically the responsible person under MoCRA, which means that you are responsible for the product listing, you are responsible for adverse events, you're responsible for safety substantiation, and all labeling updates. And again, I know in the cosmetic world, you can have a company that owns several different brands, and think about it not so much as the brand name, but who is listed on that label. Again, most of the time, contract manufacturers, especially the ones that private label, white label, would not necessarily put their name as the distributor on the package. They're technically selling you that product to sell and be responsible for. So, but that being said, when you work with a contract manufacturer, it really is a team effort to get all of this information, because as a brand owner, you're trusting that they are doing all the proper and necessary things on your behalf. But still, if you're on that label, you are responsible for gathering all that information. So here's a question around: if a small business is in cosmetics and makes nail polish, is it entitled for exemptions? So kind of as mentioned, the small business first is on a average gross annual sales. From that, if that's a yes, we are below that $1 million threshold for that annual sales, and you do not engage in manufacturing or processing the following cosmetics. So the mucous membrane, the products that are injected intended for internal use or alter. Nail polish itself, I think that falls under the that 24 hours under conditions of use that are customary or unusual and removed by the consumer is not part of the conditions. So nail polish, if you can remove it on your own, so any of those, nail polish removers that you can remove nail polish on your own, I would probably consider not into this realm. But any of those press-on acrylic nails, anything that falls under those nail extenders, I would feel would fall into that 24-hour conditions and not removed by the customer type of category. Again, there is so many cosmetics out there. Even in the annex, they mentioned other nail preparations because there's just so many options out there. They wanted to make sure to include like the majority of the ones, but necessarily not always can name every single product that is on the shelf. We are at the half hour, but you guys have a ton more questions, so I'm happy to stay on and keep answering. We actually went over in our first session as well. If a U.S. company owns a manufacturing facility um, in and they overseas and also a facility in the US, would they act as the RP of that facility? So very important to explain is that the responsible person, if they are on the label and then also own the facility, they have to cover all things MoCRA. You're responsible for everything. So if you do have a facility that's in overseas and then you have a US facility as well, I believe you're asking if you can act as that US agent. So every part of that US agent part would have to be that it is a physical entity, a business entity that resides in the United States domestically, and that there is someone physically there to accept the communication and accept emergency communication from FDA. So if there is a US headquarter, it wouldn't technically be the RP, it would be that US agent part for the facility that is foreign. So I hope that clarified a little bit of what we were talking about earlier about the difference of authorized agent for a responsible person and a US agent for a facility. Some more questions. We use a contract manufacturer overseas. We have less than 1 million sales annually. Do we still need to register? I'm slightly confused about the average annual gross sales. So yes, the way that it is worded can be slightly confusing. But again, it is the average gross annual sales for the 3-year period. So that total. Has to be less than 1 million sales annually. And again, check for all of the exemptions. If it's a shampoo, conditioner, and oil, all for hair. So yeah, I'm assuming this is coming because of the mucous membrane for the eye question. So again, the way that it's worded for that exemption is the regularly comes in contact with the mucous membrane of the eye under conditions of use that are customary or usual. So my best bet is if it is a shampoo, conditioner, and oil for lashes or an eyebrow, consider yourself in that category. Shampoos and conditioners where there's statements and warnings, keep out of eyes, do not use around the eyes, that is intended for hair on top of your head. I wouldn't necessarily have that fall into that comes in contact with the mucous membrane under conditions of use that are customary or usual. It's really all of those conditioners, shampoos, and oils that are for your eyelashes and for your eyebrows that will have that direct contact. This is I love this question. We are currently a brand owner and work with multiple contract manufacturers that either manufacture bulk, fill, or process cosmetics for us. The same formula, but only differs in colors. Are we allowed to list that for one product listing? Yes. So if you have an identical formulation, and this is something that does require an expert to look at and understand ingredient listings and understanding those inkies, because any varying difference in an ingredient list technically makes this fall out of that flexible listing. But if you have an identical formulation that's made in the US and then you also make it in Canada, same exact ingredients, same inky, only differs in colorants. Technically, you can have that as one product submission, but you would need to list all of the facility registration numbers on that product listing. So the one in the US, the one in Canada, the one that you fill at, the one that you split bulk at, anything that involves the processing of that cosmetic product would have to be listed on that submission. We are getting a lot of people that say that it's easier to keep them separate because they're able to handle updates a little bit better. But it's important to know organizing or having that all that data organized and what actually happens to your cosmetic product at contract manufacturers and different facilities is extremely important to know right now. And all of you that have been joining us previously, we've talked through like asking all these questions and preparing in the coming months, and hope that's been helpful since all of this now is coming to light, and all these things need to be figured out within a month span. As I said, I think September is going to be fast and furious, and there's going to be a ton of questions around the portal. Even when the portal opens, I think we'll have tons of questions, but we are going to continue our mini MoCRA sessions. We're going to have some Q&A sessions, continue to post blogs, and really continue to help educate and give you guys as much information as possible when we have it. Happy to take a few more questions. I have a lipstick product that is the same for 10 formulations and 5 are different. They're all in the same kit. Would I be able to list as one product? So technically, no. Again, you have to follow that identical formulation, differing in colors, fragrance, and flavors, and then just separate those into 2 listings. Important to note because these kits questions come up often. Anything that is in a kit and you have different formulas in, very important to make sure those formulas in the kit are exactly identical, and they fall under that flexible listing. Otherwise, you would have to issue them separately. This goes too for eyelashes. Lots of questions around eyelashes. One's made from nylon, one's made from polyester, and they're in the same package. Technically, those would be 2 different. Same with nail acrylics, any nail base coats, things of that nature that are grouped together. Just be aware that they would be different. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. Again, we are so happy to help all of you through this. I've been in this industry for more than 15 years, working in labs and factories and regulatory. So it is a lot of regulation to get hit in within a year, and not being very regulated in the U.S. for some time. A lot of other countries have it probably a little bit less shell shock than we do right now. But we are here to help, so please feel free to reach out and ask some questions, find out our services and how we can help you in the coming months. Thank you so much again. Looking forward to seeing you all next time.